Damien fled from the seminary at 11 o'clock in the morning one Friday in August. I don't quite know the year, but it was before 1850. After some minutes had passed, he stopped, exasperated. The seminarian, who now ran fearful, dazed, and fugitive, hadn't counted on the effect it would produce in the eyes of others. Not recognizing the streets, he walked back and forth, then finally stopped. Where would he go? Home? No, his father was there, and he'd just return him to the seminary after a good caning. He had not found a refuge point because his escape had been planned for a later time, and an unforeseen circumstance forced him ahead. Where would he go? He considered his godfather, João Carneiro, but he was a lazybones with no spine and would do nothing except for himself. It was he who brought Damien to the seminary to begin with and introduced him to the rector. "I bring you someone who will be a great man," he said to the rector.
"Come," the rector opened his arms to the boy. "May the great man come, so as long as he is also humble and good. True greatness is being simple. Come, my boy."
Such was his entrance. A short time after this, the boy was off to the seminary. Now we see him here in the street, bewildered, uncertain, with neither refuge nor counsel. Running through his mind the houses of his relatives and friends, he was unable to fix his thoughts on anyone. Suddenly he exclaimed, "Miss Rita! I'll get her to send word to my godfather saying she wants me to leave the seminary. Maybe that's it." Miss Rita was a widow, the sweetheart of João Carneiro. Damien had some vague notions about their situation and would try to make the best of it. But where did she live? He was so discombobulated, it took him only a few minutes, and there he was, received into her house, located in the Largo do Capim.
"Holy name of Jesus, who is this?"
shouted Miss Rita from the couch where she was reclining. Damien had just entered, frightened to death. A moment before he entered the house, he happened to pass a priest, and he gave a huge tug on the door, which, as luck would have it, was neither locked nor bolted. After entering, he peeked back outside at the priest through the slats of a window. The priest had noticed nothing and continued walking.
"But what is the meaning of this, Signor Damien?"
shouted again the lady of the house, who only just now recognized him.
"What are you doing here?"
Damien, trembling, hardly able to speak, said that she had nothing to be afraid of. It was nothing. He was going to tell her everything.
"Get a hold of yourself and explain."
"I'm going to tell you. I didn't commit any crime, I swear. Just wait." Ms. Rita looked at him astonished, and all the girl students boarding there, as well as the day students who were sitting around the room in front of their lace cushions, stopped the movement of their hands and their bobbins. You see, Ms. Rita made her living principally by teaching girls how to make lace and embroidery. While the young man caught his breath, she gave orders to the children who were working and waited. Finally, Damien told her everything about how miserable the seminary made him, and that he was certain he could never be a good priest. He spoke passionately, begging her to save him.
"How? I can't do anything."
"Well, you can if you want to."
"No,"
she doubled down, shaking her head.
"I'm not getting into your family's business. I hardly know you. And then there's your father, who they say is a tyrant."
Damien saw he was lost. He got down on his knees in front of her and kissed her hands in desperation. "Oh, but you can, Miss Rita. I beg you, for the love of God, by what you hold most sacred, by the soul of your husband, save me from death, because I will kill myself if I go back to that house." Miss Rita, flattered by the supplications of the young man, tried to draw his attention to other emotions.
"The life of a priest is holy and beautiful," she said to him. "Time will show you that it was better to overcome these revulsions, and one day—"
No, not that, never!" Damien charged back, shaking his head and kissing her hands, and repeated that it would be the death of him. Miss Rita hesitated, not speaking for a long time. Finally she asked him why he didn't go and have a talk with his godfather. "My godfather? He's even worse than my father. He doesn't listen to me. I doubt he listens to anyone."
"Doesn't listen?"
interrupted Miss Rita, her pride wounded.
"Well, I'll show you if he listens or not."
She called outside to a kid on the street and shouted to him to go to the house of Senor João Carneiro to call on him ASAP. and if he wasn't at home, ask where he could be found, then run and tell him that she absolutely must speak to him immediately.
"Go, boy!"
Damien sighed loud and sad. To disguise the authority by which she gave these orders, she explained to the youth that Señor João Carneiro had been a friend of her late husband's and had arranged for her some pupils to teach. Still he continued to be sad, leaning against the entry. She tugged on his nose, laughing.
"Go over there, our little fatherling, and rest assured that everything will be taken care of."
Miss Rita was 40 years old, as certified on her baptismal records, but she saw herself as 27. She was personable, lively, playful, a friend of laughter, but when it suited her, she was indomitable as the devil. She wanted to cheer the youngster, and despite the situation, it didn't cost her anything. Before long they were laughing together. She shared some anecdotes and asked him for some, which he related with uncommon grace. One of these, eccentric, with lots of mugging, made one of Miss Rita's pupils laugh, and she forgot about her work as she watched and listened to the handsome young man. Miss Rita picked up a rod that was by the couch and threatened,
"Lucretia, mind the rod!"
The little girl lowered her head to take the stroke, but the stroke didn't come. It was a warning. If, however, by nightfall the assignment wasn't finished, Lucretia would receive the customary strokes. Damien looked at the little girl. She was African, skinny, nothing but a waif, with a scar on her forehead and a burn on her left hand, about 11 years old. Damien had noticed that she'd chuckled, but she held it in without making a sound so as not to interrupt the conversation. He felt pity for the little girl and resolved to be her protector in case she didn't finish her assignment. Surely Miss Rita wouldn't refuse the girl her forgiveness. Besides, she herself laughed, finding him funny. The fault was hers, if there's fault in having a laugh. It was during this that João Carneiro arrived. He turned white when he saw his godson there, and he looked to Miss Rita, who wasted no time with small talk. She said to him that he needed to remove the young man from the seminary, that he had no vocation for ecclesiastical life, and better that he be less than a priest than a bad one. Here on the outside one could also serve our Lord. João Carneiro, astonished, didn't think of a reply for some minutes. Finally he opened his mouth and reprimanded his godson for having come and bothered, quote, people strange to you, unquote, and after that declared he would punish him.
"What punishment? What nonsense!"
interrupted Miss Rita.
"Punish why? Go speak to his father."
I can't guarantee anything. I don't believe it's possible."
"It's possible, I guarantee. If you want it,"
she continued with a cocksure, insinuating tone.
"one can do anything. Ask so insistently that he gives in. Get going, Señor João Carneiro. Your godson is not returning to the seminary. I tell you, he's not going back."
But my dear madam..."
"Go! Go!"
João Carneiro wasn't moved to leave, nor could he stay. He was in a tug of war. It didn't matter to him in the end whether the boy ended up a cleric, a doctor, a lawyer, or anything else, however indecent, but the worst of it was that they were waging a huge battle with the most deeply held convictions of the father, with no certain result, and if he were unsuccessful, there would be another fight with Miss Rita, whose last word to him was a threat.
"Tell him the boy is not going back."
It would undoubtedly force a scandal. The pupils of João Carneiro's eyes were blown open. His eyelids twitched, his chest heaved. The looks he cast at Miss Rita were pleading with a glimmer of criticism. Why couldn't she ask him something else? Why not command him to go on foot in the rain to Tijuca or Jacarepaguá? But to persuade a father, just like that, to change the career of his son. He knew the old geezer. The man could very well break a vase across his head. If only the young man could just fall to the ground right now in an apoplectic fit and die. Cruel? Sure, okay, but at least it was something definite.
"So?"
insisted Miss Rita. He gestured for her to wait. He scratched his beard, trying to come up with an alternative. God in heaven! A papal decree dissolving the church, or at least raising all the seminaries, that would be a happy ending to it. João Carneiro could go home and get back to playing cards. Imagine, if Napoleon's barber was commissioned to command the Battle of Austerlitz. But the church went on, the seminaries went on, and his godson went on, sewn to the wall, eyes downcast, waiting without a solution, apoplectic.
"Go on, go!"
Miss Rita said, handing him his hat and cane. There was no remedy. This barber put his razor away in its case, drew his sword, and deployed himself into the campaign. Damien could breathe again. On the outside he remained the same, eyes fixed on the ground, overwhelmed. Miss Rita now pulled on his chin.
"Go to dinner. Don't get depressed."
"Do you believe he'll be able to settle something?"
"Everything will get settled,"
she said with a rebuke full of herself.
"Go on. The soup's getting cold."
Despite Miss Rita's playful genius and her native light-heartedness, Damien was less happy at dinner than he was at the start of the day. He had no faith in the spineless character of his godfather. However, he dined contentedly and finally returned to the joking of earlier that morning. At dessert he heard a stir in the dining room and asked if they were coming to take him away.
"That would be the girls."
They got up and went to the living room. The girls were 5 neighbors who came every afternoon to have coffee with Miss Rita and stayed until nightfall. Her young disciples, after their dinner, returned to the cushions they were working on. Miss Rita presided over all the females inside the house and from outside. The whisper of the bobbins and the chit-chat of the girls echoed so mundane in the house, so far removed from theology and from Latin, that the young man let his attention drift to the ladies and forgot everything else. During the first few minutes, a few of the neighbors were still a little shy, but that quickly passed. One of them sang a love song to a guitar played by Miss Rita, and the afternoon quickly passed. Before they adjourned, Miss Rita asked if Damien would tell a certain anecdote that she liked very much. It was the one that had made Lucretia laugh.
"Go ahead, Signor Damien. Don't make us beg, making the girls want to go. You're all going to love it."
Damien had no choice but to obey. Despite her announcement and the expectations she created, which served only to diminish the joke and the effect, the anecdote finished amid laughter among the ladies. Damien, pleased with himself, hadn't forgotten Lucretia and looked over at her to see if she laughed too. He saw the girl with her head down over her cushion finishing her work. She didn't laugh, nor would she have even chuckled to herself. The neighbors left, and the afternoon passed. Damien's soul turned dark before nightfall. What could be happening? From time to time he went to peek through the window slats and returned more discouraged each time. Not even a shadow of his godfather. Without a doubt his father had shut him up all right, then sent 2 of his slaves to the police station to get a cop who'd come and take the young man by force back to the seminary. Damien asked Miss Rita if the house had any way out through the foundations, and then he ran to the backyard and figured out that he could vault over the wall. He still wanted to know if there was a way to escape onto Wallace Street, or if it was better to speak to some neighbor who would do the favor of taking him in. The worst part was wearing the cassock, wondering aloud if Miss Rita could find for him a topcoat or an old overcoat. Miss Rita found just the topcoat, a souvenir left behind or forgotten by João Carneiro.
"I have a topcoat of my late husband's," she said, giggling. "But why are you so scared? Everything will be taken care of. Relax."
At last, just inside the mouth of night, one of the godfather's slaves showed up with a letter for Miss Rita. The business was still not done. The father had become furious and wanted to break everything and shouted that no, sir, the spoiled brat had to go to the seminary, or he'd put him into a penitentiary or a prison ship. João Carneiro fought hard to convince the father not to be too hasty in his decisions, that he should sleep on it and consider deeply if it was advisable to put into the religion an individual so vicious and rebellious. He explained in the letter that he spoke this way only to further their cause. He didn't have to win. Rather, the next day he would go back to see the man and insist again. He concluded by saying the boy should go to his house. Damien finished reading the letter and looked to Miss Rita. "She is my last resort," he thought. Miss Rita ordered an inkwell be brought, and in the middle of Carneiro's own letter she wrote this reply. "João, darling, Either you save this boy, or we never see each other again." She put a sealing wafer on the letter and gave it back to the slave, hastily to be returned to sender. The seminarian, who was once cloaked in dread and humility, came back to life. She told him to calm down, and that the campaign was now hers.
"You'll see what I'm capable of. I'm not one to kid around."
The time came to collect the work on the cushions. Ms. Rita examined them. All the students had finished the assignment except Lucretia, who was still at her cushion, maneuvering the bobbins, not even looking up. Ms. Rita stood over her, saw the work wasn't finished, became furious, and grabbed her by the ear.
"You good-for-nothing!"
"Mercy, ma'am, by the love of God, by Our Lady in heaven."
"Vagabond! Our Lady doesn't protect little tramps."
Lucretia made an effort to get away, tearing herself away from the lady's hands and fleeing into the house. The Signora went after her and grabbed her.
"Get over here!"
"My lady, forgive me."
"I do not forgive you."
And they both turned toward the living room, one held by the ear, talking back, crying and begging for forgiveness, the other saying no, she must be punished.
"Where is my rod?"
The rod was at the headboard of the couch on the other side of the room. Ms. Rita, not wanting to let the little girl slip away, shouted to the seminarian,
"Senor Damien, do me a favor and hand me that rod."
Damien turned cold. Such a cruel moment. A cloud passed over his eyes. Yes, of course, he had sworn to protect the little girl. It was because of him that she slowed down her work.
"Give me the rod, Senor Damien."
Damien started walking in the direction of the couch. The little black girl then begged him by everything sacred, by his mother, by his father, by Our Lady.
"Come to me, my dear boy."
Miss Rita, with her face on fire and her eyes bulging, urged on by the rod, without losing hold of the slave girl, was taken by a fit of coughing. Damien felt himself fill up with pity, but he really needed to get out of that seminary. He arrived at the couch. He took up the rod and handed it over to Ms. Rita. The Case of the Rod by Machado de Assis, first published in 1899, translated from Portuguese for audio performance by Todd Conner, copyright 2020, with music from Chiquinha Gonzaga's Ave Maria, composed in 1909. If you like this work and would like to support the Carryorker, please consider making a purchase at the Carryorker Podcast Store. A direct link is available on the website at www.thecarryorker.com. Or if you'd like to make a donation, click on the website's link for PayPal. Commercial or private sponsorship of future episodes can include the recording of a story live at your own location. See the website for details. In the meantime, as always, listen, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.